Don't take me to the hospital. Please! The one who wants me dead will find me there." The woman's hand was ice-cold as it clutched Evan Calder's wrist. Her jet-black eyes, filled with desperation, locked onto him as if clinging to the very last thread of hope. 10 minutes earlier, Evan had just dug her out of a wooden box buried deep beneath the soil of the Green Mountain Forest. Her hair was matted with dirt, her lips pale, yet her voice, that trembling voice, rang out with a force that left Evan frozen. Evan Calder, a 42-year-old forest ranger in Stowe, Vermont, had witnessed no shortage of tragedies in the wilderness, but a woman buried alive beneath the ground? That had never appeared in any rescue manual he had ever known. "Daddy, she's really scared," whispered Ellie, his 6-year-old daughter. Her wide, tear-brimmed eyes gazed at the stranger with compassion. "Can she stay at our house?" It was in that moment that the woman, whom Evan would later learn was Vivian Hale, CEO of Hale Capital Group, one of the largest financial conglomerates in New England, spoke the words that would change everything. "If I had died in that box, then the child would never know." What child? Her trembling voice explained, a younger brother she had been searching for over the past 2 years. A brother who had no idea he even had a sister. If she died, that truth would be buried forever. Evan could never have imagined that his decision to bring this stranger back to his wooden cabin, rather than to a hospital, would set off a chain of events that would upend both his and his daughter's lives. He had no way of knowing that just 3 weeks later he would stand inside a high-rise building in Burlington holding a recording device, facing the very man who had once ordered her to be buried alive. Nor could he have known that the trembling woman in his arms that autumn afternoon would one day teach him this: that a heart once thought dead could still be revived. That family is not only blood, but the ones who remain when you've been buried, both literally and figuratively. It all began on an autumn afternoon in Vermont. Scarlet maple leaves blanketed the forest trail, the scent of damp earth mingled with pine resin, and the knocking, the faint sound from beneath the ground that only a 6-year-old child could hear. That was when our story began. If you love journeys filled with drama and raw emotion like this one, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story. And before we begin, I have a question for you. If you were Evan Calder, would you dare to bring a mysterious woman, just pulled out from beneath the earth, into the very home where your little daughter lives? Leave a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And now, let's begin. October in Vermont had a kind of magic Evan Calder never grew tired of. Sunlight pierced through the canopy of crimson maples, scattering shimmering streaks of golden orange onto the forest trail. The air carried the scent of damp soil after the previous night's rain, blending with the distant calls of birds. A peaceful symphony he had always needed after a week of exhausting patrol shifts in the woods. "Daddy, why are there so many red leaves today?" Ellie skipped ahead, her blonde ponytail bouncing with each step. "Because the trees are resting to prepare for winter, sweetheart," Evan replied, his voice as gentle as it always was when speaking to his daughter. "They pull the nutrients back into their roots, and the green fades away, leaving only the reds and yellows. Like when I get sleepy, and I have to go home to rest, right, Daddy?" Evan chuckled. 6 years old, yet Ellie always had a way of seeing the world that amazed him. This child, the last gift his wife had given her life to bring into the world, was the only reason he still got up every morning after 6 years of being widowed. They had gone about half a mile into the Green Mountain Forest when Ellie suddenly stopped. "Daddy!" "What is it, sweetheart?" "I hear something." Evan paused, listening. Only the wind whispered through the branches, perhaps a stray deer somewhere in the distance. There's nothing. Maybe it's just the wind. It's not the wind, Daddy. Ellie tilted her head, her doe-like eyes shining with an odd focus. It sounds like someone knocking on a door. Knocking? Out here? Evan was about to tell her she was imagining things when his eyes caught on an unusual detail, a patch of freshly turned soil about 15 feet off the trail. Dark, wet earth stood out starkly against the carpet of dry leaves around it. A chill ran down Evan's spine. Freshly dug earth in the middle of the forest was never a good sign. "Stay right there," he said, his voice suddenly serious. "Let me check." He walked closer, knelt down, and pressed his hand against the soil. And he felt it. A faint vibration. Steady, as if something, or rather someone, was beneath. Thud! A knock echoed up. Thud! Thud! Evan's blood turned to ice. "Ellie, come here," he barked, no longer hesitating. "Help me dig." They lunged at the dirt with their bare hands. Soil flew everywhere. Evan's nails split, blood oozed out, but he didn't care. Ellie used a broken branch to claw at the ground, her small face flushed with effort. 10 minutes later, their hands struck wood. A rough, plain wooden box, its lid nailed shut. "There's someone down here!" Evan shouted, as much to reassure himself as the person trapped inside. "Hang on, I'm getting you out." He grabbed a large rock and pried at the nails. 1, 2, 3. His hands shook, not from the cold, but from fear. What if it was already too late? What if the person had suffocated long ago? When the final nail gave way, Evan froze. Inside was a woman. Her long black hair was matted with mud. Her pale face still held a strangely striking beauty. Her lips were cracked, hollowed. She wore an expensive gray suit, now crumpled and filthy. And her eyes, those deep black eyes, looked at him with a mix of terror and relief. "You found me," she whispered, her voice hoarse. Evan didn't think. He bent down and pulled her out. Her body was frighteningly light, as if she had been starving for days. When he set her on the ground, her legs buckled, forcing him to hold her upright. Are you okay?" Ellie asked, her voice trembling, her eyes full of compassion. "You must have been so scared, right?" The woman looked down at the child. A tear slid down her gaunt cheek. "Yes, I was scared," she admitted, her voice breaking. "It's okay." Ellie took a breath, her small voice firm. "My daddy will take you home. My daddy will protect you." The woman let out a faint laugh, a trembling sound laced with pain and tears. Then she looked up at Evan, and the words she spoke next changed everything. "Don't take me to the hospital. Please, the one who wants me dead will find me there." Evan went rigid. In his 42 years of life he had faced many life-or-death decisions, but none weighed as heavily as this. A stranger, freshly pulled from a living grave, begging him not to take her to the one place that should be safest. She said someone wanted to kill her. By the book, he should call the police. He should take her to a hospital. He should let the authorities handle it. But when his eyes met hers, eyes overflowing with genuine terror, no hint of deceit, Evan knew that if he walked away, she would die. "All right," he heard himself say, "I'll take you home." He lifted her up, his strong arms cradling her frail body, and began walking through the forest toward his old pickup truck. Ellie stayed close, not leaving his side for a second. Evan Calder had no way of knowing that, in that moment, the quiet life of a widowed forest ranger had ended, and a new chapter, fraught with danger and chaos, but also filled with hope and healing, had just begun. Evan Calder's wooden cabin sat at the end of a winding dirt road, surrounded by red oaks and maples. He had built it with his own hands 12 years ago, back when Sarah, his wife, was still alive, and the two of them had dreamed of a simple life immersed in nature. Now, as he stopped the truck in front of the porch, holding a trembling stranger in his arms, Evan realized it had been 6 years since he had let anyone cross this threshold. Since Sarah's death, the cabin had been only a refuge for him and Ellie. No guests, no friends, just father, daughter, and memories. "Ellie, open the door for Daddy," he said, his voice tighter than he intended. The woman was still conscious, but her body shook violently. Evan could feel her pounding heartbeat through the thin fabric of her suit. When he set her down on the old sofa, the one where Sarah used to sit knitting, the same spot where Ellie still curled up with her books each night, she suddenly gripped his wrist, her nails digging into his skin. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her breath shallow. I need to know this is real. That I'm out of that box." "This is real," Evan said softly, trying to keep his voice steady. "You're safe now." "Ellie, bring Daddy the first aid kit from the bathroom." He knelt to check her. No open wounds, but deep purple bruises around her wrists, the unmistakable marks of restraints. Her skin was dry and cracked, her lips chapped, her body unnaturally cold. Severe dehydration had taken its toll. "How long were you in there?" Evan asked as he dabbed warm water onto her lips. "I don't know." Her voice was hoarse. "They injected me. When I woke up, I was already in the box. I couldn't tell day from night, only pitch black." Her body began to tremble in rhythm with her quickening breath. "Breathe deeply." Evan placed a hand on her shoulder, his tone firm but calm. "You're outside now. This is light. This is air. Look around." The woman slowly opened her eyes. Her gaze drifted across the room. Warm pine walls, a stone fireplace, a large window awash in afternoon sun, shelves lined with family photos. She inhaled once, then again. Gradually, her breathing steadied. "Thank you," she murmured. Ellie hurried back, clutching the first aid kit, her round eyes fixed on the stranger. "Daddy? Does she need food? I can make her a peanut butter sandwich." A faint, fragile smile appeared on the woman's lips. "What's your name?" "Ellie." Ellie Calder. The little girl glanced at her father. "And this is Evan, my daddy." "What's your name?" She hesitated for a moment before replying, "Vivian." "My name is Vivian. Do you want some water, Miss Vivian?" "I'll get it for you," Ellie said with the solemnity of a tiny hostess. "Yes, sweetheart." "I really do." As Ellie ran into the kitchen, Vivian turned back to Evan. In her eyes was gratitude mixed with wariness. "I need to explain," she said quietly. "You have the right to know who you just saved and what danger you're facing." Evan pulled up a chair and sat across from her. "I'm listening." Vivian drew a deep breath. "My name is Vivian Hale. I'm the CEO of Hale Capital Group in Burlington. Perhaps you've heard of Hale Capital." Evan cut in, his eyes flickering with surprise. "The largest investment management firm in Vermont?" Vivian nodded, a tired smile flickering across her face. "My foster father, George Hale, founded the company in 1985. He passed away 3 years ago, leaving it all to me, along with the North Star Children's Foundation, which helps orphans." Evan frowned. "Then why would the head of a children's charity be buried alive?" Vivian's voice trembled. "Because 2 months ago, I discovered someone was embezzling funds. Over $20 million through fake transactions, shell organizations. And that person—" She stopped, her throat tightening. is Robert Fallon, my executive assistant. The man my father trusted like a son. Evan felt his stomach knot. And he knew you were investigating him? I was overconfident. I thought I could quietly gather evidence, but he found out. Vivian lowered her head, her fingers clenching. 3 days ago, I went to survey a property near Stowe, where we planned to build an orphanage. When I returned to the hotel, they were there. 2 men. They gagged me, injected me. When I woke up, her voice broke. There was only darkness. Darkness so thick I couldn't even sit up. I knocked on the lid, felt wood. I knew where I was. Evan inhaled sharply, picturing the moment of waking inside a coffin underground. I screamed, Vivian choked, tears streaming down her face. I pounded until my hands bled. But no one heard. The air was running out. I thought I would die. Die in the dark. Die with no one ever knowing. Then you heard something, Evan said quietly. Vivian nodded, wiping her tears. Footsteps. Light, like a child's. I knocked with everything I had left. And then I heard a little girl's voice. Daddy, someone's knocking. Ellie came back with a glass of water, stopping when she saw Vivian crying. Miss Vivian, are you okay? The girl asked anxiously. Vivian forced a smile. I'm just thanking God for sending you to save me. Ellie nodded solemnly. Daddy says I have good ears. I can hear owls from really far away. She placed the glass in Vivian's hand. Daddy, can Miss Vivian stay for dinner with me? Evan looked at Vivian. This woman, CEO of a financial empire, someone who could hire an entire team of bodyguards, was now sitting on his sofa, exhausted and trembling, begging for shelter. Yes, he heard himself say, you can stay. Vivian's eyes met his, brimming with gratitude, relief, but also still full of fear. Evan suddenly knew this dinner was only the beginning. It would stretch into days, then into weeks. There would be whispered conversations by the fireplace, midnight terrors, quiet breakfasts, moments where 2 wounded souls learned to trust again. And it all began that night. The first night Vivian Hale slept in the Calder cabin's living room, the crackle of the fireplace blending with Ellie's steady breathing from the next room. That first night, after 6 long years, Evan Calder no longer felt his home was empty. The next morning, Evan woke at 5:30 as usual. He lay still for a moment, listening to the familiar sounds of the cabin. Wind threading through the pines, the first birds breaking the dawn, the drip of water from the eaves after a night of fog. But there was one sound he didn't recognize, the soft, steady breathing coming from the living room. Then Evan remembered. Vivian Hale was asleep on his sofa. He crept quietly down the stairs. Vivian was curled beneath the wool blanket he had given her the night before, the one Sarah had once knitted. Her long black hair, now washed clean, spread loosely across the pillow. With the dirt gone, her face revealed its fine, delicate features, though even in sleep, tension still pressed against the corners of her eyes. Evan turned away and went into the kitchen, switching on the kettle. That smell! A hoarse voice spoke behind him. I'd forgotten what real coffee smelled like. Evan turned. Vivian was sitting up, still wrapped in the blanket around her shoulders. The first light of dawn streamed through the window, tracing a thin halo around her. Did you sleep well? He asked. I had nightmares. But each time I woke, I saw the light from your room, heard Ellie's steady breathing, and I remembered I was free. She looked at him. It was the best sleep I've had in months. Evan poured 2 cups of coffee and sat across from her. Do you need to call anyone? Family? Friends? A sad smile flickered on Vivian's lips. No family. George Hale, my foster father. He's gone. And friends. In my world, they call it networking, not friendship. I have colleagues, partners, acquaintances, but someone I could call at 5:30 in the morning to say, I just survived? No, she shook her head. No one. What about the police? Robert Fallon has the best lawyers in New England, Vivian cut in, her tone hardening. If I go to the police now, no evidence, no witnesses. He'll say I'm paranoid. The board of directors, who already doubt me, will side with him. She looked him squarely in the eyes. I need time. Time to think clearly, to plan. And you want me to hide you here, Evan said slowly. I know it's too much to ask. You have a daughter, a life of your own. But right now, you're the only person I can trust. Evan fell silent. 24 hours ago, he hadn't even known she existed. Now she was asking him to shield her from a killer. Logic told him to refuse. But he remembered the moment he pulled her out of the box, remembered how Ellie had held her hand and promised to protect her. 1 week, he heard himself say. You have 1 week to make a plan. After that, we have to do something official. Vivian exhaled, relieved. Thank you. But there are rules. You don't leave the cabin when I'm gone. If anyone comes, you hide. And most important, he glanced toward Ellie's room. My daughter must not be in danger. I understand. I promise, if there's any sign Robert has found me here, I'll leave immediately. They drank their coffee in silence until small footsteps came pattering down the stairs. Daddy? Miss Vivian's still here. Ellie ran to hug Vivian as if she'd known her for years. Vivian, who had just said she had no real friends, embraced the child back, surprised and moved. Good morning, Ellie. Did you sleep well? I did. I dreamed you and I were catching butterflies. Do you like butterflies? I have never gone butterfly catching. Ellie's eyes widened. Never. But butterflies are so pretty. Then I guess you'll have to teach me. Okay. Daddy, can I show Miss Vivian the butterfly garden? Evan glanced outside. The sun was up. The forest around the cabin was quiet. All right, but only in the backyard. 2 hours later, standing in the kitchen, Evan watched through the window. Ellie running across the yard, holding her makeshift net. Vivian, wearing jeans and a flannel borrowed from Sarah's old closet, sat on a wooden chair, smiling as she watched. Look, I caught one, Ellie shouted, holding up a monarch butterfly. Vivian leaned in close. Beautiful. But what will you do with it now? Let it go, of course. Daddy says we only catch them to admire, not to keep. If we keep it, it'll be sad and die. Vivian fell silent for a moment. You're very wise, Ellie. When the butterfly fluttered away, Ellie sat down beside her. Miss Vivian, why did people bury you? Evan held his breath. Because someone wanted to take what was mine. And they thought if I was gone, they could keep it. What was it? Money. And power. Ellie frowned. Daddy says money and power aren't as important as people. That person must be really dumb, right? Vivian laughed. A real laugh this time, not a polite smile. Yes, sweetheart. Very dumb. Then you should stay with Daddy and me forever. That way the dumb person won't find you. Only for a little while. I don't want to trouble your daddy. You're not trouble. Daddy likes having you here. I know it. You know. Because he smiles more. Since Mommy died, Daddy doesn't smile much. But this morning, I heard him laugh when he talked to you. Vivian looked toward the kitchen window, where Evan had just turned quickly away. That afternoon, while Ellie napped, Vivian stood by the living room bookshelf. You read Tolstoy? She asked, a little surprised. Is that strange? No, it's just... People usually assume forest rangers only read books about trees. I read those too. But Vermont nights are long. You need something to fill the silence. Silence, Vivian repeated. I'd forgotten what silence even sounds like. In Burlington, it's always horns, voices, phones. But here, silence has its own voice. Evan stepped beside her. My wife used to say that. She said the silence of the forest isn't an absence of sound, but the presence of peace. It was the first time Evan had mentioned Sarah. Vivian waited patiently. Sarah, my wife, died giving birth to Ellie. Complications. The doctors could only save one. Sarah chose Ellie. He paused. 6 years, and still, sometimes I turned my head expecting to see her. You loved her very much. I did. We met at 16. She was everything I knew about love. He looked at Vivian. What about you? Ever had someone? I had a few relationships, but no one stayed long. It's hard to love someone who works 18 hours a day. You can love. I see it in the way you look at Ellie, the way you talk about the foundation. You're not as cold as you think you are. Vivian held his gaze. For a brief moment, the air between them thickened. Daddy? I'm hungry, Ellie called from the bedroom. The moment vanished like a bubble. Vivian turned, her cheeks flushed. I'll help you in the kitchen. And as they stood together in the kitchen, Evan chopping vegetables, Vivian stirring soup, Ellie sitting nearby drawing, Evan realized, for the first time in 6 years, the cabin no longer felt empty. For the first time, it felt like a home. On the third night, Evan jolted awake at 2 a.m. to a cry. He sprang up and rushed to Ellie's room. The girl was still fast asleep, clutching her teddy bear. The cry sounded again. From the living room. Evan ran downstairs and switched on the light. Vivian was curled up on the sofa, arms wrapped around a pillow, her whole body trembling. The borrowed t-shirt was drenched in sweat. Her eyes were wide open, staring into nothing. Vivian, Evan called softly, kneeling but not touching her. You're at the cabin. You're safe now. Dark, she whispered like a child. Too dark. The air? There's no air. Evan understood at once. A panic attack. Her mind had been dragged back into the wooden box. Vivian, look at me. Open your eyes and look at me. Slowly, her gaze focused. She saw him. Can you see me? She nodded weakly. Good. Now look around the room and tell me what you see. I see the fireplace. The coals are out. Right. What else? The window. The moon. The moon is shining in. Very good. Do you see the light? Do you see the space around you? Yes, Vivian exhaled, her body gradually loosening. There's light. There's space. Now breathe with me. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. They breathed together. Vivian's breathing slowly evened out. I'm sorry. I woke you. Don't apologize. You've just been through severe trauma. Nightmares are normal. This time he placed a hand on her shoulder, gently, as if asking permission. Not nightmares, Vivian whispered. Memories. I was back in there. I could feel the wood against my face, the smell of damp earth, the sound of my own breathing, swallowing the last of the oxygen. She looked up, eyes brimming. Evan, I thought I would die there. I accepted it. And the worst part wasn't death. What was it? That no one would know. I lay in the dark and thought, this is how they'll remember me. Vivian Hale, missing CEO. No one would know how scared I was. No one would know how hard I fought. And my little brother, her voice broke. My brother, the one I've searched for 2 years, would never know he had a sister who tried to find him. Evan said nothing. He sat beside her so she could lean on his shoulder. And Vivian, The woman business magazines called the Ice Queen, wept. She sobbed, pouring out the fear, the loneliness, the years of building walls around her heart. Evan held her, one hand stroking her hair, the way he held Ellie whenever she had nightmares. "You're not alone anymore. Ellie and I know. We see you fighting, and your brother will know. I promise I'll help you find him." Vivian lifted her face, streaked with tears. "Why are you doing all this?" "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything," Evan thought for a moment. 6 years ago, when Sarah died, I was buried alive, too. Not in the earth, but in pain. I couldn't see a way out. I couldn't breathe. But that kid, the 6-year-old I had to care for, pulled me out. Every morning she needed me. Breakfast, school, a hug. And slowly, I saw the light again. Now you're paying it forward. No, I'm not doing this out of duty. I'm doing it because you've brought this place back to life. Because Ellie's been laughing more since you came. Because I realized I've been numb for too long. They fell silent. Moonlight painted silver patches across the wooden floor. "Could you stay here a while?" "I'm afraid. If I sleep again, I'll go back there." "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." He leaned back against the sofa, and Vivian gradually slipped into sleep, her head resting on his shoulder. When the first strands of dawn slipped through the window, Evan realized 2 things. 1, for the first time in 6 years, he was holding a woman other than his daughter. 2, he didn't feel as guilty as he'd always imagined. The next day, Ellie decided to teach Vivian how to bake. "My mom used to make chocolate chip cookies, but Daddy isn't good at baking. His cookies are as hard as rocks." "I can hear you, you know," Evan called from the living room. Vivian laughed. "I should confess, I've never baked." "Never?" Ellie's eyes went round. "I grew up in an orphanage." "We weren't allowed in the kitchen. Later, when George Hale adopted me, there were housekeepers. They handled everything. So you didn't have a mom to teach you?" Vivian sat down at eye level. "No, sweetheart. I have a birth mother, but she couldn't raise me and my brother. We had to go to the orphanage. My brother was lucky. He was adopted right away. I waited longer." "Were you sad?" Ellie placed her small hand on Vivian's. "Yes, but now I'm looking for my brother. When I find him, I'll tell him about our real family. He'll be so happy. Everyone wants a big sister." Vivian hugged the little girl. Evan saw her shoulders tremble. Not from sorrow, but from emotion. 2 hours later, the kitchen was a disaster zone. Flour covered the counter. Eggs were broken on the floor. Ellie was smudged with chocolate. And Vivian, the CEO of Hale Capital Group, was laughing as she brushed flour out of her hair. "I think we need reinforcements." Evan walked in. "How much flour did you 2 put in there?" 5 cups? The recipe calls for 2. They started over, measuring properly. When the batch came out of the oven, golden and fragrant, all 3 burst into applause. Vivian took a bite and closed her eyes. "This is the best cookie I've ever had." "You're just saying that," Ellie giggled. "No, sweetheart. Because I made it myself, with you and your dad. That's what makes it special." That afternoon, Vivian helped Evan split firewood. She fumbled with the axe. "Let me show you." Evan placed his hand over hers, adjusting the angle. "No need to muscle it. Let gravity do the work." The next swing split the log cleanly. Vivian turned back, a triumphant smile lighting her face. They worked in silence. Then Vivian said, "I'd forgotten what manual work feels like. In the office, everything is abstract. But this is real. I can see what I've done. That's why I love this job. Every day I protect a piece of the forest. Every day I see the difference. You never wanted to do something else? Make more money? Evan shook his head. I have enough. A roof. Work with meaning. And Ellie. Money can't buy back what matters most. Vivian fell quiet. I'm jealous of you. Because you know what happiness is. You had it, you lost it, and you still remember how it feels. I'm not sure I ever had it. Even though George was good to me, there was always a distance. I had to prove I deserved it. No one is perfect, Evan said. I think that's why he never talked about my brother. He was afraid if I found my birth family, I wouldn't need him anymore. But you're still searching. I have to. Because my brother is the only thing that truly belongs to me. And when you find him, what will you do? Tell him he's not alone. That someone was always looking for him. That he is loved, even if he never knew it. Their eyes met. You'll find him. And when you do, Ellie and I will be there to celebrate. Vivian smiled. A real smile, warm and unguarded. Thank you, Evan. For everything, and in that moment, under the October afternoon sun in Vermont, something changed between them. A crack in the walls around their hearts began to heal. On the fifth night, after Ellie had gone to sleep, Evan sat before his old laptop, the blue light casting across his face. In the kitchen, Vivian was washing the dishes, something she insisted on doing, despite his telling her she didn't have to. He typed, Vivian Hale, CEO. The results appeared instantly. Hundreds of articles, photos, videos. Vivian Hale, 34, youngest CEO of Hale Capital Group. The Ice Queen of Wall Street, Vivian Hale and her billion-dollar empire. Vivian Hale missing. The search called off after 5 days. Evan clicked the latest article. 5 days. They had searched for her only 5 days before giving up. You're looking me up? Evan flinched. Vivian stood in the kitchen doorway. Sorry, I just needed to know what I'm up against. Vivian walked over, sat down, and looked at the screen. That isn't me. I mean, yes, it is, but not who I really am. You want to tell me about it? She hesitated, then nodded. I think it's time you knew the whole story. She drew a deep breath. I was born into a poor family in southern Vermont. My mother, Maria, was only 19 when she had me. No husband, no money. She tried to raise me, then got pregnant again. My little brother, Ethan. When Ethan was 6 months old, she realized she couldn't care for both of us. She brought us to social services. She gave up both of you? She had no choice. She worked 3 jobs and still couldn't afford rent. I think she loved us. But love isn't enough when there's nothing to eat. What happened next? Ethan was adopted immediately. Infants are always chosen first. But me, 7 years old, able to talk, with memories, no one wanted. I stayed in the orphanage for 5 years. 5 years of watching other children get taken home until George Hale appeared. Vivian nodded. He came to visit the orphanage when I was 12. He asked what I was reading. I said, a book on stock investments. I'd taken it from the library because the cover looked important. He was surprised, asked how much I understood. I explained stocks, bonds, compound interest, and then he decided to adopt me. Because he needed an heir. Yes, don't misunderstand. George was good to me. He gave me a good education, taught me everything about business. But he was very clear. I was chosen to lead Hale Capital. That was my purpose and my mission. And you were never allowed to just be Vivian. No, I had to be Vivian Hale, the adopted daughter. Vivian Hale, the top student. Vivian Hale, the future CEO. Everything had to serve that goal. Even not searching for your brother. Vivian nodded, her eyes glistening. At 16, I asked George about my birth family. He said the records were sealed, the past was over. I believed him. I buried my memories of Ethan, the baby I once held. But 2 years ago, after George died, I found the file in his safe. He had known where Ethan was all along. He just didn't want me to find him. And you began searching. I hired detectives. Quietly, so no one would know. They found that Ethan had been adopted by a family in Burlington. He's 17 now, plays football, good at math, wants to be an engineer. He's like me. Same eyes, same smile. Have you met him yet? No. I was waiting for the right time. I didn't want to just burst in and disrupt his life. That's why I came to Stowe last week, not only to survey land for the orphanage, but also to get closer to Burlington, Ethan's city. And Robert found out. I let my guard down. So focused on Ethan, I didn't notice Robert was watching. When I checked the charity's accounts, he knew I was closing in. $23 million. That's what I discovered he had stolen in 3 years. Money meant for orphans, children like I once was, diverted into shell accounts. Her voice hardened. Robert knew if I presented that to the board, he'd go to prison. Evan looked back at the article. 5 days. They only searched for you 5 days. Because Robert controlled the narrative. He told the police I had gone walking alone. Implied I was unstable. When the search failed, he convinced everyone I might have harmed myself. And now he runs your company. Not just the company. The foundation. All the money for those kids, now in the hands of the man who stole from them. We have to do something. I know. But I need evidence. Solid. Undeniable. And I need the courage to face him. After being buried alive, I'm not sure I have any courage left. Evan turned in his chair, looking straight into her eyes. You survived the worst thing imaginable, buried in total darkness, and still you kept knocking, kept fighting. If that's not courage, what is? Now, just thinking about going back to Burlington, facing Robert, it feels like going back into that box. Then you won't face it alone. I'll go with you. Vivian stared at him, stunned. Evan, you can't. You have Ellie, your job. From the moment I pulled you out of that box, it became my fight too. Ellie will be safe. My sister, June, has wanted to take her for a while. Are you sure? It will be dangerous. All the more reason you need protection. Someone who knows how to move in the dark. The advantage of being an anonymous ranger. Vivian laughed through her tears. You're insane. Maybe. But a week ago, who would have guessed I'd be hiding a billionaire CEO in my cabin? They fell silent, both thinking of what lay ahead. I need to contact someone. Journalist Serena Patel. She's been investigating corruption for years. If anyone can expose Robert, it's her. You trust her? Serena's reputation is built on truth, no matter who it hurts. If I give her the evidence, she'll publish. And once the story is public, Robert can't bury it anymore. Then we need a plan. I know the passwords, the security protocols. I can access the system, download financial records, emails, everything Robert hid. But I have to be inside the building, at night. Fewer people. And I'll need a different appearance. Vivian touched her black hair. Everyone at the company knows what I look like. That we can handle. But first, contact Serena. Set up a backup plan. If something happens to us, the story will still be told. She nodded. All right. Tomorrow morning, I'll call her. Evan glanced at the screen. Vivian in the photo. Cold. Armored in perfection. Then he looked at the real Vivian, wearing a borrowed flannel, hair tied back, No makeup, her eyes red-rimmed, but her chin lifted with resolve. This was the real Vivian, the woman fighting for children who had once been like her. We'll take your company back, and we'll find your brother. I promise. Vivian reached across the table, placed her hand over his. Thank you, Evan, for believing me, for not giving up on me. I'll never give up. And in that moment, under the blue glow of the laptop, with autumn wind whispering outside, something shifted between them. No longer rescuer and rescued, but two people who had chosen to fight side by side. Two people who had found what they never knew they were searching for. Family. The next morning, Evan called June, his sister, 5 years older, who lived in Waterbury, 15 miles away. Evan called her. June's voice rang out, warm and familiar. You made it through all of autumn without calling? I thought you'd forgotten me. You know I've been busy. Busy? June mimicked, skeptical. Or hiding from people again? Both. But listen, I need a favor. Anytime. I need you to watch Ellie for a few days. 3, maybe 4. The line went still. Excuse me? You're letting Ellie be away from you for days? What's going on? I have to go on a work trip. A work trip, June repeated, even more doubtful. Evan, you've never gone on a work trip. Evan was silent. Then, can you cut someone's hair? Change it completely. Quick and discreet. A longer silence. When June spoke again, her voice had turned serious. Evan, are you in trouble? Not me, but someone needs help, and I can't turn my back. June sighed, the kind of sigh of an older sister used to her brother bringing home the things the world discarded. All right, bring Ellie over this afternoon, and bring the someone who needs help, too. But Evan, promise me you know what you're doing. I promise. That afternoon, Evan drove to Waterbury, Ellie in the back seat, Vivian in the passenger seat, wearing a beanie and sunglasses even though dusk had already settled. Daddy, why do I have to go to Aunt June's? Ellie asked for the 5th time. I want to stay home with you and Miss Vivian. You'll love it. Aunt June has 3 new cats, remember? But I'll miss Miss Vivian. Vivian turned, lowering her sunglasses. I'll miss you, too. But it's only a few days. Promise? Vivian hesitated a beat. I promise. I'll try my very best. June lived in a neat little wooden house, the garden still bright with flowers even in October. When they arrived, she was already waiting, a tall woman with short blonde hair, a sweater and jeans. Ellie, I just baked chocolate chip cookies. Really? Ellie squealed, her sadness briefly forgotten. Can I have one now? Come inside, sweetheart. As Ellie ran in, June turned to Evan and Vivian. So, this is the someone who needs help? Aunt June, this is Vivian. Vivian, my sister. June offered her hand. Nice to meet you. Though it doesn't seem like the circumstances are very nice. Thank you for watching, Ellie. I'm always happy to. But I need to know, where are you two going, and when are you coming back? Vivian was direct. Burlington. To confront the man who tried to kill me, June didn't blink. Okay, straight answer. I appreciate that she studied Vivian. You look familiar. Maybe from the news. I'm Vivian Hale, CEO of Hale Capital Group. Or rather, former CEO, because the man who tried to kill me is sitting in that chair now. June gave a low whistle. I read about that. They said you went missing on a hike. They were wrong. I was buried alive. Evan and Ellie saved me. June swung to her brother, eyes wide. Evan called her. You're kidding me. I'm not. And now we need to help Vivian take back what's hers. June glanced between them, the little brother who had locked himself inside his grief for 6 years, and the stranger who seemed to have woken a part of his heart that had died. All right, come in. We've got work to do. An hour later, Vivian sat in June's bathroom, a towel around her shoulders, while June stood behind her with scissors. Sure about this? Hair this beautiful. What a waste to cut it. I'm sure. Everyone at the company knows me by my long black hair. I need to look completely different. How different? Short, with bangs. Dye it, light brown or blonde. June nodded. Got it. Full transformation. The scissors began to glide. Long black strands fell to the floor like the last leaves of the season. You love him, June said suddenly. Stated, not asked. Vivian startled. I don't deny it. I can see the way you look at him. More importantly, I can see the way he looks at you. We've only known each other a week. Time doesn't decide it. I met my husband, the one who died 2 years ago, and I knew on the first day. Sometimes, you just know, Evan hasn't loved anyone since Sarah died. 6 years. But this week, when he called, I heard something I haven't heard in 6 years. What? Hope. An hour later, June spun the chair so Vivian faced the mirror. The woman looking back was someone entirely different. Shoulder-length cut, uneven layers, dyed honey blonde, soft, wispy bangs. No longer the cold CEO, but a younger, warmer, simpler woman. Oh my. I know. I'm good, aren't I? When Vivian stepped into the living room, Evan was building blocks with Ellie. He looked up and froze. Vivian? It's still me. A big change, isn't it? Evan stood and moved closer. You look different, but still beautiful. Maybe even more, Vivian flushed. Miss Vivian, your hair is short now. Do you like it? Vivian knelt. Ellie tilted her head. Now you look like the princess in my book. The princess who cuts her hair to go on an adventure. That's right. I'm going on an adventure. Are adventures dangerous? A little. Ellie hugged her tightly. Then you have to be careful. And Daddy has to protect you. Daddy will protect her, Evan promised firmly. When it was time to say goodbye, Ellie clung to Evan, cheeks wet with tears. I don't want you to go. I'm scared you won't come back. Evan knelt and held her. I'll come back, sweetheart. I promise. Mommy promised to come back. But Mommy didn't. Evan's heart seized. He held her tighter. Vivian knelt beside them. Ellie, listen to me. Daddy will come back. I promise I'll protect him, just like you and Daddy protected me. We're a family, right? And family always comes back to each other. We're a family? Yes. We are. Ellie wrapped her arms around both of them. Then both of you have to come back. Both of you. We will, Evan promised. As they left June's house, Evan's chest felt heavy. I've never spent a night away from her. Not in 6 years. We don't have to do this. No, you need to do this. Ellie will be fine with June, and we'll come back. They drove back to the cabin in silence. When they arrived, the house missing Ellie's laughter, both felt the emptiness like a wound. Tomorrow we meet Serena. She'll bring recording gear and the plan for getting into the building. What if Robert catches on? Then we run, as fast as we can. Vivian, if anything happens to me. It won't. If it does, promise me you'll take care of Ellie. Vivian looked at him, eyes shining. You are not allowed to die, Evan called her. Do you hear me? Because if you do, I will never forgive you. Evan stepped closer. For the first time, he placed his hand on her cheek, a gentle, hesitant touch. And if anything happens to you, I'll find your brother. I'll tell him about you, about how you fought for children no one protected. Evan, Vivian whispered, laying her hand over his. Under the cabin lights, they stood close, Two people who had found each other in impossible circumstances, now about to step into danger for each other. We will come back. To Ellie. To this cabin. To the life we just started building. Promise? I promise. And for the first time in 6 years, Evan Calder believed in a promise about the future. The next morning, Evan and Vivian drove to Burlington. Vermont's largest city stretched along the shores of Lake Champlain, its glass towers reflecting the sun, the bustling streets a world entirely different from the stillness of Stowe. Vivian sat in the passenger seat, a beanie pulled low and sunglasses hiding her face. Her fingers kept brushing against her newly cut short hair, a nervous gesture betraying the turmoil underneath. "Are you okay?" Evan asked. "I'm heading back to the place where someone once tried to kill me." "I'm not sure okay is the right word. We can still turn back. It's not too late." Vivian shook her head. "No. If I don't do it now, I never will. Robert will keep stealing. The children will keep being cheated. And I will go on living in fear." They met Serena Patel at a small cafe in the Old North End, far from the financial district. Serena had chosen the spot for its discretion. A South Asian woman in her 40s, black hair pulled back in a ponytail, leather jacket and jeans, rose from the corner table. Her sharp eyes swept over Vivian before she gave a curt nod. Vivian Hale. Or, should I say, the woman who came back from the dead. "Serena, thank you for meeting us. When someone calls from the grave, I listen." Serena turned to Evan. "And you are?" "Evan Calder. I was the one who found her." "A park ranger saves a billionaire CEO. Sounds like the headline of my next piece." She gestured for them to sit, lowering her voice. "But first, I need everything. Every detail." For the next half hour, Vivian laid it all out. Discovering Robert's embezzlement, the night of her abduction, waking in the wooden box, the suffocating hours of darkness, the desperate knocking, and at last, the tiny voice of Ellie. Serena scribbled notes furiously, pausing only to probe deeper. "And you're certain it was Robert? Did you hear his voice or see his face when you were taken?" "No. They gagged me, blindfolded me. But I know. Only he knew my schedule. And only he had motive. That won't hold in court. I need hard proof. Recordings, documents, emails, transfers. I can get them. All the financial records are on the company server. I know the passwords, the access paths, and how do you plan to get in? Hale Capital Security isn't a joke. I know a side entry from the basement garage. It needs a key card, but mine still works. Officially, I'm missing, not dead. And the cameras? There's a blind spot in the southeast corner of the garage. I warned security before, but they never fixed it. From there, I can take a service elevator straight up to the 12th floor. The server room. Serena tapped her pen. Sounds plausible. But what if Robert is still inside? Does he stay late? Almost always. He sleeps on the sofa in my office, at least 3 nights a week. So you'll have to climb to the 12th floor, break into the server room, download the data, and get out. All while the man who buried you alive could be only floors away. Exactly. Insane. Serena's lips curved in a razor smile, a spark of excitement flashing in her eyes. I like it. When do we move? Tonight. Friday night. Fewest people linger. Good. I'll equip you. A high-capacity USB, a micro recorder in case you confront Robert. I'll wait outside, ready to publish the moment you're out. And if I don't come out? Then I still publish. And this time, I'll make the police search the right places. But you'll come out, Vivian. You survived once. You'll survive again. Evan spoke up, I'm going with her. Both women turned. Evan, no. No negotiating. She's not going in alone. You're not staff. You don't have a card. Then I'll wait outside. In the garage. I'll stay connected to her phone by earpiece. If anything goes wrong, I go in, Serena weighed him. Have you faced danger before? I work in the woods. I've encountered bears, wolves, lost hikers with weapons. I know how to stay calm under pressure. And more importantly, you care about her. Enough to risk it. Yes. Vivian held his gaze a long moment, then sighed. Fine. But you stay outside. Don't come in unless I call agreed. Serena stood. I'll prepare the gear. Meet me tonight at 10, corner of Church Street and College. Wear dark clothes. When she left, Vivian and Evan sat in silence, looking out at the street. I'm scared, Vivian admitted. Not of sneaking in, of facing him, of looking into the eyes of the man who buried me. You won't face him alone. But if something happens to you, it won't. I already promised Ellie. We'll come back. Why are you doing all this? A week ago, you didn't even know me. Now you're ready to risk your life. Because when I pulled you out of that box, I saw someone like me, someone once buried. Not in soil, but in grief, in loneliness. And I thought, if I can help you find the light again, maybe I'll find mine too. And have you? Found the light? Evan looked into her eyes, no longer cold, but warm, alive. I'm finding it. Thanks to you, they sat long, hands nearly touching, but not yet. Evan, if tonight works, if we survive, if Robert is arrested, if I reclaim the company, I don't want to go back to the old life. 18-hour days, a cold office, no family. What do you want? I want to find Ethan, see my brother, and I want to continue what we've begun, at the cabin. With you and Ellie Evans' heart pounded. I mean that in this past week I've felt more purpose, more alive, more loved than in all my 34 years. And if you want, if you're willing, I want to see what we can build. No rush. Just let it happen. Evan reached across the table, closed the gap, took her hand. I want that too. But first, we have to survive tonight. Then we will. Because finally, I have a reason to fight. 9:45 that night, they parked 3 blocks from the tower, both dressed in black. Vivian tugged the beanie low. Evan checked the earpiece. Sound check. Loud and clear. Serena arrived, handing Vivian a small pouch. USB, recorder, flashlight. You have 1 hour. When time's up, I call the cops. Vivian nodded, sliding it into her jacket. Evan placed a hand on her shoulder. Ready? Vivian drew a long breath, eyes fixed on the building. Once her empire, now her enemy's fortress. Ready. And then, Vivian Hale, the woman who had died and lived again, stepped into the darkness, toward her final confrontation. Behind her, Evan watched and whispered, Please, let her come back. Please, give us a chance. 10:03 p.m. Vivian stood at the southeast corner of the underground parking garage, fluorescent lights casting long shadows across the concrete. She swiped her keycard at the reader, her heart pounding. The light turned green. The door clicked open. I'm in. Loud and clear. Evan's steady baritone came through. Head straight to the service elevator. Don't stop. Vivian moved quickly through the nearly empty garage. Every footstep echoed, making her flinch. The service elevator appeared. She pressed the button. Ding. The doors slid shut. A cramped metal box, low ceiling, flickering light. Just like the coffin. Her breathing quickened. The walls seemed to close in. Vivian? I hear your breathing spiking. Too tight. It feels like... Look up. Focus on the light. Follow its flicker. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Vivian locked her gaze on the bulb, counting. Inhale. Exhale. The doors opened on the 12th floor. Her heartbeat had steadied. Thank you. Always here. The deserted hallway lit up with motion sensors. Vivian strode toward the server room, swiped her card. Red light. Damn it. Card won't work. Robert must have revoked access. Now what? One option left. The IT director's office, Mark Sullivan. His terminals linked directly to the server. She reached a corner office, frosted glass door, turned the handle. Unlocked. I'm in. Dark room. She clicked on a flashlight, sweeping over cluttered desks, family photos. A monitor glowed faintly. She nudged the mouse. The login screen blinked. Password required. Damn. Needs a password? Vivian's eyes darted. Family photo. 3 kids. Typed, Emily Connor Jake. Wrong. Sullivan, 2019. Wrong. She lifted the frame, etched under the edge, Red Sox 2004. Typed, Red Sox 2004. Access granted. I'm in. Her fingers flew, locating the financial archives. 5 minutes later, there it was. Thousands of files. 3 years' worth. She plugged in the USB, began the transfer. Copying now. About 15 minutes. In the darkroom, the progress bar crawled. 12%, 18%, 23%, 10-27, 30%. Then she heard it. A distant sound. Ding. The elevator. Evan! Someone's coming up. Kill the light. Hide. Vivian clicked off the flashlight but couldn't pull the USB. Transfer still running. 35%. She slipped behind a filing cabinet. Footsteps echoed. Slow. Confident. Closer. The room lights snapped on. Vivian held her breath. A man entered. Tall, lean, slicked-back silver hair, tailored suit. Robert Fallon. He froze, eyes narrowing at the glowing monitor. Strange. Mark always shuts his system down. Vivian didn't move. He was 5 meters away. Robert approached, bending to the screen, the progress bar. 42%. What the hell is this? He spotted the USB, reached for it. No, Vivian whispered. He's about to pull it. Get out of there, Evan urged, but Vivian couldn't. Not after everything. She stepped out. Hello, Robert. He spun, face blanching as if he'd seen a ghost. Vivian? Impossible. You're dead. Sorry to disappoint. Guess I ruined your fantasy. Robert recovered quickly, lips curling. You survived? Impressive. How? A 6-year-old girl heard me knocking. Something you never counted on. The kindness of strangers. Robert gave a hollow laugh. Kindness. Your weakness. George always warned me. She cares too much for those orphans. George never said that. He said it to me. Because he trusted me more than you. I was the son he never had. You? You were just a charity project. So you buried me out of jealousy? Because you weren't heir? I buried you because you ruined everything, Robert snarled. $23 million in 5 years. I built a flawless network. And you, with your naive morals, dug too deep. That money was for children. Kids with no homes. Kids can always find another shelter. My chance comes once in a lifetime. His eyes flicked to the screen. That USB holds the evidence against me? Everything. Transactions, emails, transfers. You won't keep it. Robert yanked the USB, 47%, and shoved it into his pocket. Because you're not leaving this building tonight. He pulled a gun. Vivian backed away. Vivian! Evan's voice thundered. I heard that. I'm coming up. No, she hissed, but it was too late. Robert's head lifted, catching the voice in her mic. Of course. You're not alone. He leveled the gun. Someone dies tonight. You choose don't. Robert, there's still a way back. Back to what? Prison? I'd rather die. The door burst open. Evan charged in. Robert swung the barrel toward him. No! Vivian screamed, lunging. She slammed into his arm as the trigger pulled. The gun roared, bullets slamming into the wall. Evan crashed into Robert, grappling him. Vivian grabbed a metal stand, smashing it down on Robert's gun hand. He howled. The weapon skittered across the floor. Evan's fist cracked his jaw. Robert collapsed, dazed. The alarm shrieked. We have to go. Security's coming. The USB, his pocket. Evan yanked the drive and a phone. Got it. Run! They bolted down the stairwell. Behind them, Robert roared, Stop them! They leapt stairs, 2 at a time. Guard boots pounded below. 8th floor. Out to the hall, the 8th floor lay dark. They wove past cubicles, reaching the far window. Now what? Vivian gasped. Evan peered out. Police cars swarmed the street. To the side, a lower building, flat roof, 3 meters away. Do you trust me? Vivian followed his gaze, realization dawning. No, 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 no choice. Evan shoved open the fire window. Cold wind blasted in. 8 stories below, the street looked like a toy set. I can't. You can. You survived being buried alive. Boots thundered outside the office door. Now, Vivian! She shut her eyes, drew a breath, and jumped. In the instant before they jumped, time seemed to stop. Cold wind whipped past. Streetlights flickered below. Evan's hand gripped Vivian's tight. Then they leapt. 3 meters, short in words, but endless in the air. Vivian felt gravity dragging her down, a flash of horror cutting through. Had they miscalculated? They landed on the rooftop of the neighboring building. Evan rolled to absorb the impact, pulling Vivian with him. They tumbled across the rough concrete, finally coming to a stop. Vivian lay gasping, every inch of her body stinging, but alive. You okay? Evan asked, forcing himself up, offering his hand. I think so. No broken bones, just bruises, scrapes. They sprinted across the rooftop, found a rusted fire escape, clambered down, dropped into the dark alley behind. Out front, Hale Capital headquarters blazed with sirens and flashing red-blue lights. But here, in the shadowed back alleys, they vanished. Evan guided Vivian through a maze of side streets, emerging 3 blocks away where Serena waited, her face tight with worry. God, I heard the gunshot. I thought, we're fine, Vivian said, though still trembling, and we have the evidence. Evan handed over the USB, not the full load. But nearly half the files copied, Serena plugged it into her laptop. Her eyes widened. This is dynamite. Emails between Robert and foreign partners. Fake invoices, Cayman transfers. This alone could put him away for 10 years. And this, Vivian pulled out the phone, opening the recording. Robert's voice crackled. $23 million in 5 years. Serena's mouth curved in a cold smile. A full confession. With the USB and this audio, Robert Fallon is finished. She pulled out her phone. The story goes live in an hour. And Robert? He's still inside. I called the police the second I heard the gunshot. They've sealed the building. He's not escaping from a distance. They watched Robert Fallon led out in handcuffs, 2 officers gripping his arms. His face was ashen, stunned. It's over, Vivian whispered. Truly over this time. Evan wrapped his arms around her. Vivian broke down, not from fear or pain, but sheer relief. After 3 weeks, she was finally free. We have to move, Serena reminded. The police will need statements. And brace yourself. Once this breaks, all of New England will be looking for you. 4 hours later, Vivian sat in the police station, recounting her story for the 3rd time. Detective Margaret Chen listened intently, taking meticulous notes. By the time she was released, dawn was breaking. Evan waited in the corridor, holding 2 cups of coffee. All done? All done. By morning they'll file charges. Embezzlement, attempted murder, kidnapping. How do you feel? Relieved. Like setting down something impossibly heavy. She met his gaze. And afraid. Afraid of what? Of what comes next. The press. The board. Returning to that CEO chair. She gave a brittle laugh. A week ago, it was all I wanted. Now I'm not so sure. You don't have to decide today. But soon. The company needs leadership. The foundation needs rebuilding. And Ethan. I still haven't met my brother. Then we'll find him. Together. Evan, I can't ask you to do more. Vivian. He cupped her face. I'm not doing it out of duty. I'm doing it because I want to. Because this past week, I've felt more alive than in the 6 years before combined. And Ellie adores you. She said we're a family. And she's right. Tears slipped down Vivian's cheeks. I don't know how to be part of a family. I never really had one. Then we'll learn together. One day at a time. No rush. And in the fluorescent-lit corridor of a police station at 6 a.m., Vivian Hale kissed Evan Calder. A soft kiss, tentative, full of promise. Not an ending, but a beginning. The next morning, Serena Patel's article dominated the front page. Vivian's phone rang nonstop. Board members, lawyers, reporters, shareholders. But one call she answered immediately. Vivian Hale. This is Ethan. Ethan Sullivan. I think I'm your brother. Vivian froze. Ethan? I saw the news. About you being buried alive. About you searching for your brother. Your detective reached out to my adoptive parents last year. They told me. But I didn't know if I should call. Then I saw you almost died. And I thought, I'm so glad you called. So glad. Do you want to meet? Yes, I want to meet. When are you free? Today, right now. I'm in Burlington. Can you come to Stowe? There are people I want you to meet. People who saved me. I'll be there. 2 hours later, Vivian stood at the cabin, heart pounding. Ellie's green bicycle still leaned against the porch. June had brought her home early. The door burst open. Ellie dashed out, flinging herself into Vivian's arms. Vivian, you came back. We came back. And we kept our promise. June stood in the doorway, smiling. Come inside. I made pancakes. You two look like you need them. An hour later, a car pulled into the yard. A tall, lanky boy with dark hair stepped out, hoodie and jeans, moving nervously. That's him. Evan laid a hand on her shoulder. Do you want me here? Or just the two of you? Stay. Please. I need you. She opened the door. Ethan stood on the steps, hands stuffed into his pockets. They stared for a long moment. Hi, Ethan. Hi, sis. You have the same eyes as Mom. Our birth mom. I saw her picture in the file. Vivian nodded, speechless. Ethan stepped forward, hugging her, awkward at first, then fiercely. I'm glad you're not dead. I'm glad you found me. Me too. When they let go, Evan and Ellie stood in the doorway. Ethan, this is Evan Calder and his daughter, Ellie. They're the ones who saved me. They are family, Ellie declared. All of us are family. Ethan looked at the little girl, then at Evan, then back at Vivian. So, you'll stay here? I don't know yet. There's much to do. The company, the foundation. But she looked around the cabin. This place felt more like home than any penthouse ever had. I think this is where I belong. So, can I visit? Anytime. You'll meet Aunt June and everyone else. We'll build this. Slowly. Slowly sounds good, Ethan said, smiling. a smile identical to Vivian's. April. The following year, spring burst over Vermont in an explosion of color. The Green Mountains were carpeted with wildflowers, white trillium, purple violets, golden bloodroot. The last snow melted away, revealing dark brown soil ready for new life. Vivian Hale stood on the cabin porch, now their home, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, watching Ellie and Ethan playing in the backyard. 7-year-old Ellie was eagerly lecturing Ethan, Vivian's biological brother, now 18, on how to identify birds by their songs. "That's a robin. Hear how cheerful it sounds?" "Very." "You know a lot," Vivian smiled. 6 months ago, she could never have imagined this scene. The door opened. Evan stepped out with his own mug and stood beside her. "They get along well." "Ethan says he's submitting his application to the University of Vermont next week, in Burlington, closer to us. He wants to be near his sister." "Good for everyone. I still can't believe it, that he's real, that I have a family." Evan set a hand on her shoulder. "You've always had a family. You just needed time to find it." Vivian leaned lightly against him. 6 months after the confrontation with Robert Fallon, her life had changed completely. Robert was in prison, awaiting trial on 23 counts. His lawyer was trying to bargain, but his chances of walking free in the next 2 decades were nearly zero. Hale Capital asked Vivian to return as CEO. She declined. She proposed a new structure: hire a professional CEO to run operations, while she served as chair of the board. Oversight, strategy, no more 18-hour days. The rest of her time she poured into her true passion, the North Star Children's Foundation. The foundation was rebuilt from the ground up. Most importantly, she moved its headquarters to Stowe, into a small building overlooking the Green Mountain Forest. 3 days a week there, and every evening back home to dinner with Evan and Ellie. "You're meeting the architect soon, right?" Evan asked. "Yes, for the orphan summer camp. We'll build it right nearby, in the woods, so the kids can learn about nature, step away from screens, and just be children." "It's a great idea. I'll handle the survival skills class." "I know. The kids will adore you, just like Ellie does." They stood quietly, listening to the laughter of children, the forest birds, the wind in the trees. "Vivian," Evan said, his voice different, "there's something I want to ask." She turned, catching the quiet tension in him. "Are you okay? 6 months ago, I pulled you out of a box in the woods. I thought it was just a rescue. Do the right thing, then go back to ordinary life. But you changed everything. You brought light back into this house. You gave Ellie her laughter again. And you gave me back hope. Evan." "Let me finish. For 6 years, I lived for Ellie. I woke up every day because she needed me. But I wasn't really living. I was just surviving. Until you came," tears shimmered in Vivian's eyes. "Now, every morning, I look forward to the day, to breakfast with you, to hearing about the foundation, to the firelit evenings when Ellie's asleep. I look forward to—" The future. He let go of her hand and reached into his pocket. "I know we promised to take it slow, but truthfully, I knew by the first month. I just waited until I was sure you felt the same." He knelt. Vivian lifted a hand to her mouth. The small box opened. A simple ring, white gold, a small diamond, and 2 green emeralds. "It's not a big diamond. I'm not wealthy. But emeralds, that's the color of this forest, where we met, where our lives began again. Evan, Vivian Hale, will you marry me? Not because I saved you, or you saved me, but because we saved each other. Because together, we're better. I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving it." Vivian looked at the man before her, a plain-spoken ranger, widower, single father, living in a cabin in the woods. The man who taught her that family isn't just blood. It's the person who digs you up when you've been buried. "Yes, I will," Evan called her. 1,000 times, yes. Evan rose and slid the ring onto her finger. He kissed her, a deep kiss, full of promise. From the backyard, Ellie shouted, "They're kissing!" "Ethan, Daddy, and Miss Vivian are kissing." "So Miss Vivian will be my mom?" Ellie barreled toward them. Vivian knelt. "Do you want that?" "I do. I've prayed for it every night." "Then your prayer is answered. I'm staying." Forever. Ethan came up, smiling. "Congratulations, sis." "Congratulations, Evan." "Thanks. And hey, that means you officially have a niece." "Awesome. Uncle Ethan will teach you math, okay?" "Of course. And you'll teach me about birds." The wedding took place in June, right where they'd first met, the patch of forest where Ellie heard the knocking. They marked the spot with a ring of white stones, not a grave marker, but a symbol of rebirth. Serena Patel served as bridesmaid. June walked Vivian down the aisle through the trees. Ethan stood beside Evan. Ellie scattered wildflower petals. The guest list was small: colleagues from the foundation, Evan's ranger friends, Ethan's adoptive family, and a small group of kids from the orphanage. Children Vivian had lifted up. Vivian wore a simple white dress, her cropped blonde hair crowned with wildflowers. Nothing lavish, only simplicity and sincerity. When they exchanged vows, Vivian's voice trembled softly. "Evan, 6 months ago, you pulled me out of the dark. But since then, you've pulled me out every day, out of loneliness, fear, and a life without meaning. Today, I promise to do the same for you, to draw you out of pain, to remind you that love is not betrayal. I promise to love Ellie as my own child, and to build with you a family, not perfect, but full of love." Tears slid down Evan's cheeks. "Vivian, I don't have much. I have a wooden cabin in the woods, 2 hands willing to work, and a heart that learned to love again because of you. I promise to be your refuge when you need quiet, your strength when you falter, your companion in every adventure. And I promise to remind you every day that you are no longer alone, not ever again." They kissed as husband and wife. Applause rippled through the forest. Birds sang. The breeze caressed. Sunlight threaded through the leaves. "Now we're a real family," Ellie cheered. 3 years later, the North Star summer camp ran on 50 acres, free for orphaned children. Evan taught survival skills. Vivian ran the programs. 10-year-old Ellie led the younger kids on nature walks. Ethan, now a sophomore engineering student, volunteered every summer. One August night, after the kids were asleep, Vivian and Evan sat on the porch. "Are you tired?" Evan asked. "Tired. But the kind of tired that has purpose." She rested a hand on her belly. A new life growing. In February, they would welcome a baby. They watched as Vermont's sky slowly filled with stars. "Evan, have you ever regretted it, pulling me out of that box?" "Why would I regret it?" "Because your life used to be quiet. And I brought a storm." Evan stood and helped her up. He led her to the edge of the porch, looking out over the moonlit forest. "See that? I used to look at the woods and see only a place to hide. Now I see a place that heals. A place where 24 kids just had the best summer of their lives. Where your brother found his sister. Where Ellie learned that family can grow." He looked into her eyes. "You didn't bring chaos. You brought meaning." Vivian rested her head on his shoulder. "I love you," Evan called her. "I love you," Vivian Hale called her. And there, Beneath Vermont's star-filled sky, they stood together, two people who had met under impossible circumstances, turning tragedy into triumph. Somewhere in the forest, an owl called, the same cadence as the night Vivian first came here. But now, it was no longer the sound of loneliness. It was the sound of home. This story reminds us that sometimes our darkest moments open onto a radiant dawn. That family isn't just where we're born, it's what we build together. And that miracles aren't about dodging tragedy, but about finding love on the far shore of it. Thank you for staying to the end. If any moment in this film touched you, a faint knock in the woods, an embrace after the storm, or simply the belief that family can be rebuilt, leave a like so the algorithm knows this story deserves to be shared. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you won't miss the next chapter. Every week, I share new journeys where hope, healing, and love aren't just words on a page. Today, I want to ask you, have you ever been dug out of a dark time by someone, or been the one to do that for someone else? Tell me in the comments. I read every story. If you found this video helpful, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for being here. See you in the next video.